Well, hello. It's really high. I'm afraid to move this computer though. Okay. All right. Sorry, you guys. Just uh, bring that down a little bit. All right. I think I'm just gonna leave it just like that. Sorry about that. But yes, let's get on with this. Hello, hello, everyone. My name is Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. If you are new to the show, let me tell you what the show is about. So, this is the show where we like to have that real talk about real topics, right? So, we tend to focus on education, entrepreneurship, empowerment, self care. We've done episodes on homeschooling, resiliency, what else I'm trying to think about. Young entrepreneurship, right? So we've done a variety of different topics, and today is no different. So I am excited about today because today, not only do I have a repeat guest, but I have a repeat topic. I am excited when the guests come back to the hot seat, and I'm also excited when we bring a topic back so we can further explore that topic. So, first, let me tell you what the topic is. That topic is Life of an Immigrant, Part 3. So, we are already in our third installment of our topic, Life of an Immigrant. And my guest, who is returning to the show, she was on a prior episode. I believe that was episode, let me just double check. Well, yeah, so it's episode 144, episode 144, Life as an Immigrant, part one. So I encourage you to go back to that episode so you can catch up on today. But yes, she is back on Hot Topics, and we are going to continue this discussion. Again, episode 144. Check it out. All right, so let me just remind you about who she is. Oh, I didn't make her banner with her name. Let me just do that real quick. Her name is, give me one second. Let me just, uh, all right. So her name is Mariana Santiago. And let me tell you, she is from Venezuela and she immigrated to Canada to find the right path. Boom. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her to the stage. Hi,
Hello.
how you doing?
Very good. And you?
I'm good. I'm good. Welcome back to Hot Topics. I'm glad
Thank
I
you.
didn't scare you away.
No, thank you for having me again.
Yeah. So the last time we talked about your immigration from Venezuela to Canada, and that took over a period of, was it like 10 years, 15 years?
Yes. Well, I've been here for 7 years now,
Okay.
in Canada, in Toronto. Um, and I lived in the States 1 year, but that was like long, long, long time ago. But the life as an immigrant, it would be over like 7 years and a half almost.
Okay, so it's pretty fresh. I mean, it's not fresh, but you're still kind of young. You're in the youngish period.
Yes.
So there was a lot that we didn't get to before, and I'm hoping that we can get to it today. We didn't really delve into the process of becoming a permanent resident
Hmm.
in Canada. So that's a process in itself. So um, I if I would love for you to delve into that, into the process it took for you to become a permanent resident in Canada.
Of course, I can tell you from my experience how it was like. I know Canada keeps changing the way of how people are becoming residents nowadays, but I would say the requirements are the same. But one of the examples that I mentioned before was, for example, a friend back in Venezuela, the one that would send me pretty much to Canada. And she was like, we'll live together, da 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 da. And I actually came here before her. She did her process through a lawyer. Like there's a lot of lawyers, and depending on the countries, that can help you to become a resident. And they ask from you like all the different documentations on everything that they need, and then you pay them a fee, and then let's say they do the entire process for you, right? In my case, I did it on my own. I um, I, I did ask for my dad, my parents, to pay for my lawyer so I could come here, easy peasy. But they said, no, you go, you study, you're going to make it on your own. You don't need no lawyer. So the easiest way for me to come to Canada, because my plan from scratch was to come to be an immigrant. I mean, to stay, not only to study, because I had no plans on going back to Venezuela. My easiest way was to be as an international student. But also, I always wanted to do a postgraduate in my field, right? I had been working for in marketing for 5 years, working for companies like Eli Lilly and Novartis, and I always wanted to have at least 5 years of experience, uh, to go to study more about marketing so I could talk about real life experiences, right? Because sometimes I feel like it's like university. You learn so much, but at the same time you don't know what you're actually learning about. You're just learning all this information from texts, from like what teachers tell you, right? So I wanted to come with certain knowledge in marketing, real life examples, real life experiences, and do that program. So it was perfect. By the time that I decided to do that program, it was the time that I wanted to also leave the country. So it was like perfect timing. So what I did was I became an international student. So for that, I had to apply for an international student visa. With an international student visa, you can either study one, like a program of 1 year as a postgraduate, 1 year, or like 3 years, 2 or 3 years. You can study for more, but if you study for 1 year in a postgraduate program, Canada, after that year of being on a visa, on a student visa, then they give you a work permit. So if you studied 1 year, they give you 1 year of work permit. But if you studied 2 years, let's say, or you did postgrad that was like 2 years, or you did two programs that was 1 year each. I know a lot of friends who did that. Then the government gives you 3 years to work, which is, if you want to play it safe, I would say that's the best option, to study for 2 years, because you have 3 years to work legally in the country. That's not the path that I chose. I chose a risky one, but because I knew that I had all that they were requiring for me to apply for a resident for the Canadian residency. So how it works, it's a pool where there's a lot of areas that you need to fulfill. For example, work experience. My work experience had been as a manager for pharmaceuticals. So there, I had all the experience that I needed for me to come to apply for residency and be able to come in as a federal skilled worker. So there are like different, let's say, different segments where you fall depending on all the information that you're providing them, right? Then English, it's a big part. So for that, you have to take tests. You can either take the IELTS or the CELPIP. The CELPIP, it's the actual Canadian English test. The IELTS, of course, it's universal. And you have to get certain points on in order to get, let's say, the majority of points. So let me see if I remember correctly. So let's say for English, you could get, I don't know, let's say 100 points, right? So you, in all these English tests, you have reading, listening, writing, and and speaking. So in the IELTS, for example, sorry, in the CELPIP, for example, the score goes from 1 to 12, right? So The idea, in order to get the 100 points that they will give you for your residency, it's that the minimum score in all those four uh, areas, it's minimum 9. So you can have the maximum. So if you had minimum 9, they're giving you, let's say, I don't know, 90 points for you to apply for your residency. But if you had, let's put another example, on a test, on 3 areas, you had the maximum 12, 12, 12. But in one area, you fell below the 9. It could be 8, it could be 2, it could be 6, whatever. But if only in one area you fell below the 9, then you would get like 40 points. So that's the thing. The difference, it's pretty big. So you have to do the best that on each subject or on each segment, let's put it that way. So once you have that, that's gives you points for your pool, right? So experience gives you points, English gives you points. If you know, since in Canada they also speak French, if you also speak French, it gives you points. In my case, that wasn't the case, but again, you also have to take a test. Your age, I believe you get more points if you're younger than 30 years old. Depending on your legal status, it also gives you, I don't remember, like more or less points if you're applying with someone or if you're applying on your own. But I know after 30, they start giving you less and less and less points, right? And because it's a pool, the idea is to get the majority of points that you can get in order to get into the pool, because they would publish, if I'm not mistaken, like once a month, what was the minimum point, like score on the pool, and everyone above that score could apply, right? So the process in the system, let's put it that way, once you have all that age, English, experience, oh, I forgot one, education. For example, for education, I studied back in Venezuela, so I had to validate my bachelor degree. I had to validate many, many things to translate it in English, so they could certify that the studies that I did in Venezuela are um, qualified as a bachelor here as well. So once I did that, and I had everything, so age, studies, experience, English. I don't think I'm missing anything else. I think you also have to have certain amount of savings or money so you can show the country that you can maintain yourself, right, for the foreseeable future of your permit. So that's another requirement that you have to show. You have to like show a bit. I don't remember if it's a bank statement or something that shows that you actually have money to support yourself here. Um, and once you have all that, you go into the system, you create your profile, and you put everything that I'm telling you. Like I have this years of experience. I have this. This were my scores in my test, right? In my English test. This is my diploma from here. So studying here in Canada, it would give you points as well, depending on how many degrees did you have, like either a bachelor or like a master's. If you studied in Canada, they would give you even more points. So all that accounted for different points. So you put all that when you create your profile, and let's say that profile's there sleeping, and it tells you how many points do you have with what you built, right? And let's say that you are, I don't know the weight of each segment, but let's say that you are 500 and the pool it's on the 600. So if you can work on your score, let's say that you haven't gotten the best score in your English test, you can keep taking the English test many times until you get that minimum 999, and you get the most of the let's say you get the most of the points that they can give you for a language, right? But let's say that you hit all the maximums, you pretty much have to wait the pool to go down. Sometimes it's like very high, sometimes it goes down, and to be able to go in. So when I went in, I think they went down a little bit, because I hadn't had that English as perfect score that I needed, and I was about to take another test when I actually got in the pool. So it was, I remember one Monday morning, like I don't know, Wednesday morning, I was just like going to an interview. At that moment I was already on my work permit, and I went online and I saw that somehow my phone popped up on the website of the government, and it said, which was an odd day because they already had a pool the week before, so that wasn't supposed to happen. And they showed the pool, the score of that week, and they said, I don't know, 450. So whoever was on 450 was able to now apply for residency. And I was, let's say, at 460. And I'm like, yes, I can go in. So I didn't have to take the test. And I was able to apply. So once you apply, they it takes a while for them to say, okay, we received everything, and now we need proof of everything that you showed, right? So if I said that I had 3 degrees, I now have to show them proof, everything translated, everything validated. If I said that I had the best score in English, I had to send them the actual score, everything. So I had to prove in the example of like work, I had to draft like a work letter from like my previous employment saying certain things. What was it that I did? Because when you come in as a federal skilled worker, there are certain requirements on the jobs that you needed to do and like perform back then. So that letter included everything that Canada pretty much was requiring for me to come in as a federal skilled worker. Another way that it didn't apply to me, but again, for people that do, for example, those 2 years of studying and they get like 3 years of work permit, or even with one, once you have a year working in Canada, they give you like 150 points like this. So once you can prove that you have had 1 years of experience in Canada working as a certain titles, it also requires certain titles, or like you have to be like either a coordinator. It has to be aligned with what you studied. It has to be aligned with what you're applying, your previous experience, everything. So if you can prove that you have worked again 1 year here in Canada, um, they give you so many points. So that helps a lot of people. So let's say that, I don't know, you're 35 and you did everything, but you're married. I don't know, you didn't get the points of like the most, all of, let's say you already did your English, but you don't have French and you need points and you don't know where to take it from. The most secure way to pump your score would be working in Canada for 1 year, like straight, prove that, and then that puts you higher on the pool. So that was pretty much my process. I hope I was able to explain it in a way that like it's understandable. But once I had that and gave everything, I gave all my documents, everything. I sent it to the office that I had to send it. They You wait. They don't even tell you we received it because you sent it by mail. That was back in 2018, I think. I sent it by mail, and then you wait patiently for an email at some point to come and say, we received your application. But from the day that you sent it to the day that you actually received that email, months could go by, right? So, for example, I paid tracking shipment, like a tracking on my mail, so I know that it got secured to the office, so I can have a peace of mind. And once they have that, if they have any more questions, oh, also, sorry, I forgot that. So once you give all the requirements, they ask you to show them where have you lived in the last 10 years, and that's all, everything in the system, right? So once you're applying and putting all your proofs and how much you work and everything, it tells you there, where do you live the last 10 years? Where did you work for the last 10 years? Where did you travel? When, where, and for how many days in the last 10 years? That's something that they ask everyone, and you have to like fill it out and show it to them. What else? Also, if you lived more than 5 years in any country, either yours or another country, or you spent more than 6 months straight, if I'm not mistaken. in the States, you have to show them your criminal records. So you have to ask that country that you were there. Yeah, if you were more than 6 months, not 5 years, sorry, 6 months, you have to ask those countries if it was 1 or 5, whatever, or those criminal records, and also give it to them. So once you give all those documentation, all that documentation, all that information, that's when they take it all in, they evaluate. So once I sent that, I waited patiently for my email. They received it. I think they asked for my fingerprints. I know I did my fingerprints before. No, that was the first time that we're asking for my fingerprints. Not, they don't ask everyone for their fingerprints. Like we I talk with my friends and we still don't know what's a filter or not for that to be required. But they asked for my fingerprints, and I think that was about it. The next month, I could see on my website, like on the Canada website, that my account, or I'm sorry, my application was already approved, and then that they were going to issue, I believe, the residency card. And it took about, I would say, 6 months until I sent that all the information and I got my residency. So the way now to get, once you're approved and everything it's done, they they send you they send you a visa, a one-time visa for you to get out of the country and come back, give that to immigration, and that's how, when you land as as a resident. I know that also back in the day, or like when I did it, there was also by appointment. You could do an appointment with an, I don't know if it was like Service Ontario or one of the offices of the government, and you could ask for an appointment, and that person would make all the paperwork for you to be able to do the landing. That's how they call it, the landing. And that's about it. I think I had that document for about a month and a half, and then I traveled to Miami. I came back with that and came, and once I entered Canada, I was in as a Canadian resident. So once you're a resident, if I'm not mistaken, you have all the rights. You can do anything as a Canadian except vote, pretty much. But you get all the benefits as a Canadian, and the passport, of course. And after you get that residency card, it's valid for 5 years. And what the country asks from you from those 5 years, if you want to become a citizen, is that you live 3 years in Canada physically out of those 5 years. Once you have those amount of days that represent 3 years, pretty much, you can apply for the Canadian citizenship. In my case, because I studied here, they say if you studied here, it didn't matter if it was 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter. But if you studied here in Canada, they give you 1 year of presence automatically. So I didn't have to do the 3 years out of 5. I had to do two. And the third one came because they gave it to me because I studied here. And the citizenship process was pretty similar, because they already asked for all the information for your residency. It's pretty much, once you have the days, you can apply, and you also have to give your information of where you lived, where you traveled, and where you worked for the past 5 years. But in this case, no need for tests, no need to prove anything because you already gave all that. So I would say it's a bit more, it's a bit simpler. Um, and once, because of COVID, again, you also send that by mail. You pray to God that they get it and wait patiently for that email. So that happened, but if I'm not mistaken, this year now you can do it online. Now you can apply for your citizenship online, and everything is moving faster. And the timings are, I don't think they have like a certain order, because I have a friend who applied, for example, for citizenship in January, and she got it in October. She already had her passport. I applied September of last year, and I got my citizenship in May. So it like, there's no order on how they see all of these cases, But yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, I would say, when it comes to moving to Canada and applying for residency. And I what I say always, it's that once you are a resident, it's just a matter of staying here for 3 years and become a citizenship. I think becoming a resident is the most challenging part to, if you want to stay here in Canada. And again, you can take many different ways, and depending on your career as well, there's an area that Canada says which kind of um, jobs they're looking for, right? So if you have, I think, a manager for restaurants, it was one of at that moment that was like really needed. Or I don't remember the other ones right now, but if you have that experience, again, they give you points for it. They want to bring you as a federal skilled worker. So the segment that I came through was federal skilled worker because I had experience from back home. I had 5 years of experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you, you definitely went through a journey, right? So, with going for your residency, right? There's a point system, and I mean, 'cause you talked about the difficulty of getting the residency, right? So, there's the point system, and then because you came to Canada for school, and you had to be at school for a certain amount of years in order to apply, and it's once you're done with school, then it's like you have to. I think you applied for the work permit first,
So
right?
because I came here to study, yeah, I had the visa. I waited because again, timing is precious in this processes. I waited for like the very very last to apply for my work permit. And again, because I studied 1 year, they gave me only 1 year of work permit.
Oh, okay. So if you studied for you're right, because two
Mhm.
years you get more time.
Yeah. So
So the work permit came automatically with the school permit, or you had to apply for it?
you have to apply for it.
Okay. So yeah. So you got the school permit, right, to go to school in Canada, but you were only there for a year. So now it's like, but it's not like you didn't want to go back to Venezuela, right? You wanted to stay in Canada. So because of what we talked about last time with the economic turmoil over there. Um,
And I was gonna say it was tricky, right? Because I chose to study only 1 year and not 2 years. And I was like, yeah, I know I'm gonna make it. But at some points, because of that damn English test, that it's terrible, and they're so expensive too. Like each test costs around $350 each time you take it, right? Um, I was not making, like, I had everything in my favor except that English score. And I was seeing that I was somehow running out of time, and I'm like, oh my god, I only have months now, like 3 4 months left. What if I still don't have the scores that I need from the test? Because I can tell you, I like in the CELPIP, I'm terrible at writing. I don't even know how to write in Spanish. It's just like it's a problem that I have. And I did CELPIP, and I think, yeah, I had everything. Well, writing was really bad, so it was like six or something like that. So that already like put me in a very bad position. But even my speaking, I would say it's like one of my strongest skills. It was like 8 out of 12. I'm like, I don't believe that. And the tests are so silly. They show you like let's say a frame like this, and it's like,
yeah.
what do you see? And you could be like black and white tower, and like one, two, like maybe five, like I don't know, buildings, but you never know what they're asking for, or like, but it was things like that, and it's like, oh yeah, she's wearing a dress, she looks happy, like I don't even know, and I even paid, like, no, review that, I have more, and they were like, I paid for the review, they reviewed it, and they're like, it's the exact same score. I'm like, this is unbelievable. So I took the IELTS after. I'm like, I'm not dealing with you people anymore. I'm taking the IELTS. And in the IELTS, my speaking was the highest. So the IELTS goes from 1 to 9. I
Mm-hmm.
had 9 on my speaking. So it's like there those tests are so tricky. And the thing is that I when I took the CELPIP, I had reading and I think it was listening were like 11 and 12. The speaking, which I still do not agree, was 8. And yeah, my writing was terrible. But because of those two scores, what the points that they were giving me, of the points that they could give me, was like half or like a quarter. So you need to take that test and again score minimum 9 in the case of a CELPIP. I think it was like minimum 7 in the case of IELTS each time. So it's not like, let's say that I took the CELPIP again, and then this time I nailed writing and I nailed the speaking. But I had an 8 on reading. Again, they would not give me the scores. They're not like, okay, let's put all the tests together and you made it. No, you have to have the perfect score in order to get the maximum of points. And that was tricky, because it's also a lot of money every time you pay for each of those tests. I know people that have taken it 6 times. So 6 times 300, we're talking about almost 2K in that test.
And that's another factor.
Yeah.
That's another thing that we don't really consider when it comes to immigration is
Hmm.
all these things are money, right? So, to did you have to pay an application fee?
I think I did. I probably was like I don't remember, like between, I think, two, I think between $2,000 and $4,000 probably for everything. Like the fee here, the fee that, the residency, this. I also had to pay for my citizenship, but that was way cheaper, I believe.
Right. So, that's another factor. Like these things aren't cheap, right? So there's the application fee, and then there's the fee to take the English test, and then there's a fee to take that test, and there's a fee to do this, and there's a fee to do that. So it's a financial investment to reside in Canada,
Exactly.
to reside in another country, right? It's a financial investment, and that's something we don't really talk about.
Yeah, and it's tough because again, those tests are very tricky. That's why at some point I was like, because they say that the CELPIP, it's easier, but it's easier that again, it's silly in the things that I'm telling you, like two dogs barking at each other. Describe the picture. I can totally describe the picture, but I don't know what they're looking for. So you could rent or buy books and kind of like know what they were asking for. But again, so many people did that, and again, they would fail. So, and then you see people, like, it was funny, like with full on broken English, but they know how to take that test and they nail it. So there's like every scenario. But I had friends who failed the tests so many times. Their English was good that then you end up paying for courses because you're running out of time. You need someone to explain you how to pass that test. And that's another, like, say that's another cost if you, in case that you needed it. That's a reality that I saw myself in. I was like, okay, I need to take this test again and like study more and see if I make it. And if I don't make it, I was going to have probably like now 3 months left. That's when
Yeah.
you're freaking out and you're like, okay, I'll pay for the course. Where is it? Because you are with one foot in and one foot out.
Yeah. And I'm thinking they're probably just, well, were there study guides? Because I know, like, to go for like the green card in America, there's like study guides that they give you. Did you get anything like that? Like a study guide or a practice exam or something like that?
I had like practice exam and things like that for my citizenship, but not for English. So for
Oh,
English, they like when it comes to the residency, all they ask for is give me your notes. I don't care about they just ask. Like, we need all this, give me what you got. and prove me that what you told me is true. Pretty, that's the way that I see it when it comes to residency. But they don't give you absolutely anything. I mean, once you sign up for the IELTS, I think they give you like few tests here and there, but most of the things cost money. Like if you want to buy a book, yeah, because you pay for the test. But if
Right.
you want to buy a book, again, the damn book, it's like $80. And like with a practice test and this, and you practice a lot, and then all of a sudden it's like you don't get the score that you needed, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Each of those books were like pretty expensive, and the self-pip as well. It was like, so we would go to sometimes like library and maybe rent it or like study at the library, and see how is it that they want things to be explained, because that was the thing. It's not a matter that you can talk or you can listen, or it's like how they want you to show that like English. In the case of writing, for example, like writing an essay, they teach you how and what is it that they're looking for.
So what do you think they were looking for? Because my mind is like, okay, it's one thing to know English pretty well, but it's another thing to actually articulate something, to explain something.
Yeah.
So what do you think they were looking for the English test?
I In the case of like the Canadian one, I think they look for, probably it's just simplicity in the way, like when it came to writing, it's it's like those tests that you take for universities, right? Like the TOEFL. It's
Okay.
pretty much the same, that they have like a structure. So if they tell you an essay, you're like, you start with a compare, you can take two routes, or there's two type of essays, like the comparison one or the descriptive one, I don't know. And so they give you a certain structure on how to build a proper essay for those tests. It's not like you're there free writing, like, oh, this is my book. No, that it could maybe show that you know English, but it's not following that structure. I think it's because so many people take it that you have to have a structure when it comes to that. But, or like listening, it's also somebody's telling you a story and you're like filling in the blank of what you're listening to understand. Like, so they make sure that you're understanding when they're speaking to you. But for example, in the speaking one, that I had that experience with the self pip, that I was like, my English is quite good. Like, I understand that I don't know how to write, but like the speaking, it's not my problem. So for me, it was a shock that you're telling me to, like, tell me, I don't know, what do you see here? And I'm like, a candle, and it's a blue, but like I literally describe everything that I saw, and I still don't know how or why I failed.
Hmm.
And when I went to take the IELTS, it's funny because it's random questions and it's with real people. The CELPIP, it's on a computer. So you talk to a computer, you don't talk to anyone. The IELTS, it's with someone real. And that lady was like, tell me your favorite movie and tell me what's it about and what you like about it, or something like that. And I don't know why we do these things to ourselves, but I think I chose one of the like most complicated movies at that time, that it was like Hunger Games.
Okay.
That it's like 8 districts, and they fought, and like everyone separated, and each district and was dedicating one to coal, the other one to like mines, the other one to fishing, like no sense. And then they go to arena and they kill each other, like so complex. And then there's this people that it's like a dictatorship, but it's not a dictatorship. Like, I'm like, oh my god, Mariana, why didn't you just say the Beauty and the Beast or something simple? Why? But I guess I was able to explain myself in my own way, and yeah, I got the highest score that I could get. So I feel like it's different. So I don't know exactly what they're, again, self-pip simplicity and IELTS, that you are able to communicate yourself, I guess.
Yeah, and then the aisles was an actual person you were talking to.
Exactly.
So, you know, those those tests are subjective. You
Mhm.
know, it's not um it's not like multiple choice where you pick an answer and you get it right and there's a point, but it's actually judged on the person administering the test. Like
Yeah,
it's not a point system. It's whatever that person feels. It's whatever that person thinks. Whether you
exactly.
whether you pass or fail. I would imagine those are harder than like a paper test.
Totally. Well, I remember on the writing, and again, writing is not my strongest. I started writing where it wasn't supposed to be written, the essay. And I'm like going crazy. I'm like, oh no, it wasn't here. And then I'm like deleting the entire thing. And I'm like rewriting it again. And I'm like, I'm lost already. And everything, it's with time, right? They're like, you've got 30 minutes to do this test. That's it. Or like to do this area, whatever. And once it's done, it's done. And I'm like, oh, I deleted this. I mean, like for the self of everything, it's on a computer. In the IELTS, it was written. So I was like, oh, sorry, I had to erase this. And they were like, why didn't you just ask for another piece of paper? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know what I could. Like you're freaking out in those tests. And I had perfect scores in all of them. But again, my writing fell below the minimum that Canada required. And I'm like, oh my God, for which one do I pay now? For CELPIP or IELTS? Which one again? And it was a story that I was telling before. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in the afternoon once I get home, and I'm gonna pay. I think I chose a CELPIP that time. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for a CELPIP this time. But in the morning, I literally opened my phone and I was like, okay, where is it that I'm going? Because you always Google where you're going and where is it located. And I opened my phone, clicked on Chrome or Safari, whatever, and it opened right on the website of the Canadian government that I was not going to even check because the pool had already been done for that month. And I'm started reading it, and I'm like, the score went lower, and I'm like, oh my God, I got in, I got in. But like by chance, because I was not gonna come home, check it. No, I was gonna come home and apply for a new test. But somehow it popped up in my phone. I'm like, yes. And that night, I received the email. You are invited to apply for your residency.
Wow. So tell me that feeling. The fact that it sounds like you got lucky because they actually lowered the the passing score. So it just worked out for you. So take us through that moment, that feeling when um, that feeling that you can finally apply for your residency. Take us through
Well,
that moment.
well, I can explain you more that I haven't shared on the day that I got like that news is that I had my profile, everything, and apparently I feel because I did it on my own, right? I didn't hire anyone. So when they ask you like which college did you apply, whatever, they ask if it was public or private. In my head, I paid for that. Well, not me, but my parents paid for that college. So that it's private. Period. No public here. Like for me, that's private. So I chose private. And in my score, like my total score, they would show you get this amount of points for this amount of points for this amount of points for that. And for my studies in Canada, zero. And I'm like, how zero? No, it's impossible. Oh my God, I can't. Like, why zero? Like, if it's one thing that Canada should give me is the money that is spent here on that school. Like, no, tell me that you're giving me zero because you don't not fully understanding the letter that I gave in. Whatever, my work experience, but no, the study that I did here, like, impossible. So that night, I saw a guy that always told me like, I'll help you, whatever. Don't worry, I'll help you with your like application. Don't hire a lawyer. I'm telling him, I don't know what's going on, man. Like I'm not getting the points that I should get. And he's like, I think I know where the error is. And he's like, you chose private and not public, and that's the error. That's where you can find the college, whatever. And because we were talking about it, I went on my phone and checked the pool that was out the week before.
Mhm.
Whatever. I go home, change the thing in my profile to get those 15 points that they give you for studying, which is not that much, but they count. And I changed it, and in the morning, I checked, and it was the exact same situation. And I'm like, there must be a glitch. I change it, it's not showing. But at those moments, you're freaking out so much that my decision that afternoon was, once, delete my profile and create it again, and pay for my English test, right? Because the pool had already been done, something was not working on my profile, and I still had to take the test. So that's when I say I got lucky, because I literally was like, I was actually going to an interview with our recruiter, and I'm like, where are there? They pulled up on that website. It shows me that there's a new pool. I'm like, huh? Like, you know, when you read something, you can't believe it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm like, did I get in? And I'm like, okay. So I closed my phone, went into my interview, came out, I read it again, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm in. I'm in. But I was in if the system counted those 15 points. So I was in, but I was not really in,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like freaking out. And I'm like, oh my God. And again, thank God I saw that, because I was going to delete my profile that day and recreate it. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. And I called, and they tell you, we're not going to tell you anything about your process. You're like, this is only information. You do the thing. I don't know how a guy was like, what is your account? Like, what is your application number? This. And I'm like, there's a glitch. There's a glitch in the system. I'm in. I'm in. And I asked a friend, and she's like, well, Mariana, if you didn't get it, you didn't get it, bro. And I'm like, but I'm in. And she's like, do you think they care? Like, you're out. If you didn't, like, if it's not counting it, it's, you're out. And I'm like, no, no, because I'm in. It's a glitch. It's a glitch. But at the same time, it's like, who's gonna care about that? Like, you're talking with customer service that they're not giving you information because it could be problematic for so many people, right? But this guy was an angel of God, and he's like, okay, yeah, I see your status here. Oh yeah, I see the glitch. And I'm like crazy walking around a supermarket as I'm talking to the guy, and he's helping me, and he's like, "Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, we'll fix it."
Mhm.
But that's odd. Again, nobody gives you a status on any application. That thing does not exist. Like, nothing. They're like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. We can't see that. We don't have access to it." And again, I didn't want to come to my place, because that meant elevator, and I would lost signal. So I'm like crazy walking around, like through the supermarket, talking to the guy, help, help, help. He's helping me, and all of a sudden, they call, hangs up,
Oh no.
and I'm like, oh my god, no, oh my god, I lost it, I lost it. I'm like, finally got out of the supermarket, come home, call again. Of course, somebody completely different answers. And I'm like, I had this issue in the morning, and they're like, no, 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 like, we can't access your application. I don't know what you're talking about. We can't. And I'm like, no, but this guy. And again, you never know the name of the guy. You don't know how to contact, like, nothing. And she's like, yeah, I don't think he was able to do that. I don't think, she wasn't saying that he was lying or anything, but he was like, we can't do that. We can't give that kind of information. She's like, I think you have to, like, delete your profile and, like, let it be and, like, create it again. But I was like, I was in. And I guess I just let it be for the day, and I was just like, I'm just gonna wait, and I do hope that this guy understood and helps me. And there's nothing that I can do, because if I didn't make it into that pool, maybe the next one was going to be higher again. And again, I was attached to this test result that was not easy to get.
Yeah.
And at night, I got the email. Like, I told, of course, I went for drinks with some friend, and my all I'm talking about is like my day, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm in, but I'm not in. And the glitch, damn glitch. And all of a sudden, we were like at the bar, and I got my email at 10 p.m. Hi, Mariana Santiago. You've been invited to apply for your residency. And I'm like, oh my God. Like jumping up and down in the bar because we're all on the same boat, right? We're waiting for that. We're like, that's where we're working. That's where we're here, struggling and going through so many things.
Yeah, it's like a wave of relief just came over you.
Exactly. And my mom always said, that guy helped you, Mariana. That guy helped you. But it is a fact that they say whenever you call, it first thing that the machine tells you, we do not give you a status on your application. It does, and it makes sense. Like imagine all the people calling for like whatever. It's just an informational portal. But yeah, I don't know that guy. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he liked me. I don't know. I think he understood the position that I was at, that I was just not calling to like pester him or whatever. And I think he helped me to like fix that glitch that I kept talking about. And yeah, when I saw it, I think the next day the system was recognizing those 15 points that I did because I was like, I fixed it yesterday. I fixed it yesterday before the pool came out. Like I need it.
Oh man. Oh man. Wow. You definitely overcame a lot, and it's I mean there's a lot that goes in this journey, right? The system glitches, and you were just like you didn't get the response that or you didn't get the results that you wanted. So you were just about to start completely over, and it's like you come so far just to fall back, So there's a lot of back and forth and ups and downs, and but it worked out in the end.
Yeah, and I think the pool stayed that low for like maybe another one, and after that went way, 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 way high up. So to show you the difference on how the English matters so much, it's that my point at that moment was like 415, I think, or something like that. But if I actually got the score that they wanted, again, that minimum score on the test, my score would be or would have been 489. So we're talking about more than 70 points difference.
Out of how many points in total?
I don't know how many points are in total because if I let's say that if I worked a year in Canada, they would have given me more points, like 700 150. So I would have had like 600. But the pool was always around 450, 460.
Ah, okay.
So that I needed those scores in that test. And again, I was able to have in one test all of them perfect but not the writing. And because of that writing, I was 70 points off, which I needed. I needed if the pool was not going down. But because it went down at that moment, which is like an off thing, I was able to get in. But if not, I would have been struggling with like that test while
Yeah.
running out of time.
Yeah, so the English, the written and the speaking part were the most amount of points of the whole process.
No, no, they're all the same. The thing is that, so in the CELPIP, they go from 1 to 12, each of them. But if you in one, it didn't matter which one it was. It could be writing, it could be speaking. If in one you fell below 9, you are not getting the maximum points. So if you got 999 on all four areas, let's say they would give you 100 points. If you got 12, 12, 12, 12, they would give you 100. Like you needed the minimum. But if
Hmm.
you got 12, 12, 12, and 1 8, so it didn't matter that you ace the other three, you got 1 8, they would give you 40 points or like 30 points for your English. So that's a tricky part because you need that minimum, that 9 in all of them, minimum. If you don't have that 9, they're not giving you the points. Pretty much like that.
So then would you have to retake all four parts again or just
all
that
four
one
parts
part?
again.
All four
All-
parts again? My God, wow.
And again, let's say that next time, because that happens, it didn't happen to me, but it happens that you nailed three and the one that you failed was speaking, let's say, and then you go again, nail three, and now the one that you failed was reading. You got eight. Still not valid. They don't put both together and say, okay, between both tests, you got it. No, you got to go a third time and make that score that you need. Minimum nine in all of them in the same test.
Wow. It's almost like they don't want people to be permanent residents.
Well, the way that I see it, it's money, right? More money, more people taking the test.
Ah, it's a conspiracy.
Right?
It's business. It's big business.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that they're the only ones, but it's like that, right? Like those type of tests that you need a minimum. They're the only ones that give it to you, and there's like tricks here and there, and then you have to retake the entire test, and then every time that you take it, it's more money and more money.
Mm,
But yeah, no, I can tell you, people spend 2K trying to get that score that they needed.
wow. It's this whole journey is a lot, and uh people don't really realize that it's a lot that you have to go through just to be able to live legally in a country, So yeah, it's a lot that you went through, and um, but how long was that whole process? So from the work permit to when you got the residency, how long was that period?
I would say about a year because I got my work permit in October, and sorry, I got my work permit in October, and I got invited to apply for the residency the June of next year, the year after. And I gave everything as quick as I could. So let's say that I sent everything the very beginning of July, and I think in end of August or September is when they ask for my fingerprints. Again, that doesn't apply for everyone. And I think in October, end of October, I was able to see that my residency had been approved. And then they sent the document that it's like the visa with one entry. And then I had a trip to Miami in January. So I said, okay, I'll just travel in January and come back as a resident. And that's what I did. So if I count those 3 months, let's say a year and 3 months, but from the moment of I got my work permit to being approved to get that residency, a year.
Oh, okay. You made it. It was only a year, but you made it seem like it took 5 years. But it was all, it was all in one year.
But it sounds like 5 years, but it's like it's funny because people say a lot of Canada that it's super cold, and that, oh my god, they called and you're like, oh, do you like the weather? Can you stand the weather? I'm like, the weather is the least of my problems. Like, I'm trying to make a living. I'm trying to find a job in my field. I'm trying to become a resident. I have to do all this paperwork. I don't want to get kicked out. I have no family. I have to study. Like, so many things moving that some people don't see that. So when people would ask me about the weather, I'm like, why would I care about the weather? I have so many issues, like so many things that I gotta fix for my future now, like now, because the clock is going backwards, that I don't care if it's minus 40. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. Like, I have bigger worries.
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. It's like you can't even think about the weather right now. It's like you got all these things that you're
Exactly.
that you have to deal with. Yeah. All right. I know we're having a lot of fun. We didn't even talk about the employment the employment debacle that you
That's
went
another
through.
beast.
That's another one. That's another installment. But yes, let's start to wind things down. So, do you have any words of advice that you want to share with our audience? Any final words? Maybe something you wish somebody told you about the process. Any words you'd like to share?
I think that I think it's a Latin thing also to get like the fastest or like easiest way out. So I always, my friend told me about that lawyer, right? Like pay that lawyer and you'll get your documents. And my parents were like, no, you go and do it on your own. We know you'll be able to make it. And I did it. And when I came here again, I was like, I want to pay for a lawyer to do my I hate reading. I'm like, I don't know how those that works. Like I don't want to deal with that. I'm doing I'm doing the lawyer thing, but the lawyer thing also costs you like $3,000, $4,000, right? To apply for residency when you can actually do it on your own. So one of the things that somebody told me, it was this guy friend who was like, Mariana, you're not paying for a lawyer. You're not paying for a lawyer. You can do it on your own. If not, I'll help you with it. But do not pay for a lawyer. Also, you're counting pennies, right? And at the end of the day, it's like, well, yeah, I'm counting pennies. And I did talk with one lawyer. She showed me kind of like what I had to do, and it was like literally to provide all my information to this website. That was it. So one of the things that I was like, okay, then you gave me all the information. Like I don't need to pay anyone for this. So one of the things that I appreciate a lot that friend gave me at that advice, and that it would be an advice that I tell to everyone. It's don't look for the easiest way like a lawyer to do your documents or anything, because it may sound horrible, it may sound like tedious, but once there's a lot of people in the same boat, I feel like um, everyone's willing to help each other, and it's a matter of like just reading through what you need to do, what is it that they're requiring, to have the patience to go through all the information. I know there's people that are great for that. I'm not, but I did it. So my advice is just like if you're going through a process like immigration process or anything that you have to deal with documents, or process that you have to do on your own, just read about it, ask for help. Everyone is willing to help when it comes to these things, and don't fall into these traps of like, I know that if I do it through the lawyer, I will be able to have it, because we can have it. The lawyer is not, let's say, or that person is not giving any information that we're not giving them. So we're actually fully capable of doing these processes on our own. Except if you have like a complex situation, let's put it that way. Like, I don't know, you got divorced, things like there are certain things that you might need some guidance, but I would say read a lot about what you need if you're going through one of those processes. They're very self-explanatory, and ask for help. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are willing to help when it comes to those things, and you will be able to make it. And for the tests, study study the structure of the tests very, very thoroughly. So you have to take it only once and not more than once. Ask friends, do practice tests, buy books or download them on internet, whatever it is, so you don't have to go through that stress many times.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we are over time, but that is okay. When the party is going good, it's like you got to keep going, right? All right, so let's get to your promo. All right, you guys. So you can find Mariana Santiago. She is on that social media. You can find her on Facebook, YouTube, she has two Instagrams. That's right. So she has two Instagrams. You can find her on YouTube and Facebook. So her Facebook And YouTube, it's just her name, Mariana Santiago, and her both of her Instagrams. So one of them is Mariana191, and the other one is Ella, what? No,
Ella
Ella,
is Marianita.
Ella S. Maranita. That's right. So I encourage you to find her on all of her social media accounts and follow her on all of her accounts. The information is right there at the bottom of your screen. It is also in the description if you are listening to this on audio. So make sure you get that information, follow her on all of her social media platforms. It is there for you. And you have a podcast called Is Mariana Making Sense? There is an English version and a Spanish version. Tell us about your podcast.
So my podcast, I feel like it's it's about reminding people that we can be better every day. I feel like sometimes we are too busy just reacting to the things that happens to our life. We're always busy, we're always on the go. And I feel like sometimes we don't sit down and think for a little bit, what is it going to come out of our mouths, what is it going to be our reactions where we are under stress. So the way that I best describe it would be how we can be better people in this crazy society, because I feel like sometimes we get lost in our way. We're again going, working, we're sleeping, partying, whatever, and you just don't sit down for a second and actually look inwards and see how we can be better. And we all know how we can be better people. The thing is that again, we're just busy and we're just used to react to whatever happens to our lives.
Mm,
So it's just like a little reminder on common things of um, of things that happens to all of us, that sometimes, even let's say when we criticize someone, we're better people when we don't criticize people, right? But sometimes, even if we're trying to be the best version of ourselves, our mind tricks us to go into those old patterns and just boom, criticize, right? So it's just a matter of like, why am I actually, right? Let's go in like deeper on that thought. Like, why am I criticizing that person? Does it have to be with that person, or is it something that I have inside of me, right? So I feel like that's what my podcast is about. Like each episode, it's different. They're not that long. They're between 10 to 15 minutes, and it's about those reminders of how, in an easy, simple way, we can be better people. Because I'm sure all of our parents showed us how to be better, but we just forget because we're busy. That's why we're busy, busy, busy all the time.
mm. There you go. So you guys, so that is great content. So if you're looking for that great content, check out her podcast. Is Mariana Making Sense? There's an English version and a Spanish version. What's the Spanish version called?
Mariana con o sin sentido.
All right, there you go. All
It's
right, and as you say it. So yeah, her podcast is available wherever there are podcasts. So check it out on your favorite podcast station. Whether that's Spotify or Apple or Google, whatever your favorite platform is. Look for her podcast. Is Mariana Making Sense? It is English and Espanol. All right. So, Mariana, thank you so much for coming back to the hot seat. Thank you for sticking it out with me over time. And thank you for coming back and sharing your story.
no, thank you for having me. Very happy to be here a second time.
Awesome. Awesome. We got to do this again. We didn't even talk about the employment thing. All right. So I will place you backstage now. And you guys, it is just you and me. So let me get my contact information on the screen. Okay, you guys, we have made it. We made it to the conclusion of this episode. Thank you so much for sticking it out with me on this journey. So I just want to remind you guys that Hot Topics is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. That is the company that this whole podcast is under, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So, mm, excuse me. So, if you are looking for a tutor, whether it is for your child or even for yourself, because we do work with adults, maybe you need help with English. Um, ooh, excuse me again. Maybe you need help with English. Maybe you need help with reading. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're trying to get residency somewhere. You're seeking a permanent residency, whether in Canada or America, and you have that damn English test. And maybe you need some help with that. Maybe you need to boost your English speaking skills. We can help you with that. Reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also email us at success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also find us on our multiple social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, and I think there's a couple others. It's not coming to me, but we are on multiple social media platforms. So find us on social media and follow us as well. But yes, if you are seeking tutoring services, homework help, academic assistance, virtual workshops, test prep, college counseling, editing and proofreading, any of those services, reach out to us. Website again, www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And I encourage you guys to share this episode with your friends, with your family. If you know someone who's in the immigration boat right now, you know they're trying to get their residency, you know they're trying to get their green card, this is the episode to share. And I'm going to pose that challenge for you right now. So if you know someone that is trying to get some sort of immigration status change, whether they're going for residency, whether they're going for green card, citizenship, asylum, whatever the immigration journey is, I'm posing that challenge to you today to share this episode with them. So if there's at least one person in an immigration hurdle, immigration journey, this is the episode to share with them. So I'm going to pose that challenge to you. Share this episode with at least one person that you know is going through some sort of immigration process, whatever that is. So that is my challenge to you. And of course, I want to know your feedback about this episode. Let me know what you thought about this episode. So if you're watching this on video, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, drop a comment. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Leave a comment in the comment section or in the comment thread. I'd love to hear what you thought about this episode. If you're listening to this on audio, drop us a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or Podchaser or Deezer or Google Podcasts, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this right now, drop us a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode. I definitely will appreciate your feedback. And finally, Hot Topics has a text blast. Get on our text blast. I encourage you to do that. You will learn about all of our live episodes. You'll learn about the audio releases. So anything and everything to do with Hot Topics, I encourage you to get on the text blast. All you have to do is text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. Again, just text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. You can also send us an email. Again, success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to you joining us at the next episode. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you at the next episode. Thank you again, you guys. And now I am signing off. Bye, you guys.